Welcome to the Reality Quest podcast. Hey, Jay.
Hey, Kelly.
What is Reality Quest?
We are beginning on an endeavor to explore the world of virtual reality, augmented reality, spatial computing, XR, as the industry is really leaning towards referring to it now. Basically, that whole domain, we want to find interesting individuals and sit down and have real conversations and really understand what's going on, what kinds of things people are doing, the kinds of experiences that they're having, whether that's in art or medical science or in narrative experimentation, whatever it is. We want to understand how these technologies are affecting people, how they're changing the world, and where we might be going. And then at the end, we want to kind of gather together all of that information, do a little bit of more research on our own from the things that we learn, and then kind of collect it into a condensed capstone sort of episode that we hope will be a good overview of where the industry's at, where the field is going, and some of the potential implications, and maybe a little bit of speculation on how these technologies are going to affect the world.
That sounds good to me.
So we first started out by talking to Katie Kelly.
Indeed. Katie Kelly, which is not this Kelly, just to be clear. People mess us up a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's confusing.
Very difficult.
Katie Kelly.
This is Kelly of a different last name.
Kelly
Luckily, it's not Katie. That would be real confusing. Let me tell you about Katie Kelly. She works over at the Microsoft, that big old company over there.
Yes.
Microsoft.
She works at that Bill Gates company.
I feel like they're going to get mad at me somehow.
Saying Microsoft.
That's not our name. I mean Microsoft.
Misrepresenting the brand.
Yeah, right. So she worked at Altspace. When it was a startup, she was a community manager. And Altspace is a social VR platform. So that means like where people can go to meet up and hang out in a virtual space. So that could be like by a little campfire where you're meeting strangers. It could be in a living room where you're hanging out with friends. And now she leads the team. They've since been acquired by Microsoft, and she leads the team there. So she knows a whole heck of a lot about social VR.
I really liked throughout the conversation how it became very clear that she has brought a lot of her strong social energy and emotional intelligence to the platform. And in that way is helping to utilize those skills and exploring the medium and really defining a lot of best practices and interesting ways to help people interact constructively in the virtual environment.
Totally. I think this episode will give people some insight into that world, especially, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I learned that I didn't know about the social VR world and what people are doing with it, meaning like the users, how they're using it, and also what the people like Katie and her team are doing in order to manage it and make it a positive experience for people. And it really does. I mean, it gave me hope about things. I hope there people like Katie Kelly are managing the future of social VR and all social things. I mean, Katie's just honestly a wonderful person, and we have lots of great conversations about human connection and all of that, you know, outside of VR as well. So
yeah, the conversation definitely wanders into a number of different topics, but we should definitely get on to the episode.
I guess so. Yeah, people are probably sick of listening to us.
We think too much.
He thinks too much. I talk too much. Together, we're gonna ruin your life. All right, here's the episode.
If you could sit down and have a conversation with literally anyone in the world in any time as well, who would it be?
You're starting out with the easy ones.
You don't have somebody right off the top of your head. That's okay.
You know the New York Times like questions that you ask your partner, and it goes through like 1 through 50, and it gets you more intimate.
Oh yeah,
that's
the
like
one.
that's like number 4.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my goodness, look it up.
Is that
New York
the
Times
one?
questions for intimacy.
Okay.
I was gonna say, is that the one where there was a researcher that was trying to figure out if you could make people fall in love by just having them talk for the first time?
Yes.
In like a 4-hour conversation.
Through all of those questions.
Yeah, and then at the end of it, if I remember correctly, you would make eye contact for like 4 minutes straight without breaking. And then the idea was that you'd probably be in love with them by the end of all of that.
Absolutely. I think we should all just try it right now.
Yeah.
Wait, so
Wait. How does the staring work? Because
There's three of us. I'm really good at separating my eyes both directions.
So you're gonna like one eye for each person.
Yeah.
So I've actually done that before. I did it as part of like a yoga training
I'm
thing.
so curious too.
Oh, I love eye gazing. I've done so many eye gazing workshops.
That doesn't
It's so
surprise
interesting.
me for some
So
reason.
nice.
It's
Well, the
like,
time we
yeah.
did it, everyone in that class started laughing except for us. And actually, a weird part about it was like the girl that I was doing it with, I thought would be the ultimate person laughing, like that she wouldn't take it seriously. And we just locked eyes and neither of us broke. And then she started crying.
Oh.
It was crazy. We went from like
Wow.
not knowing each other at all and like me
She's
kind of
just
judging
sobbing.
her to be like, oh, yeah. And then she was crying. And then since then, it was like it didn't take much conversation. It was like we saw
You just
into
had
each other's
it.
souls.
Yeah, you like just connected on
Yeah.
such a deep level just by staring at one another.
Right.
But like you do that so rarely in normal life with anyone. So like you suddenly do that with even just a random person, and all of a sudden it's just profound.
Yeah, I led my first connection workshop at Burning Man last year.
Ooh,
And it was
that's-
so much fun because I got to bring in all like my little connection exercises. And eye gazing is one of my favorite. But one of my favorites is you walk around a space and you randomly just pick a partner and you stare into their eyes. But then the narrator will
interesting.
say, imagine all the ways that you are similar with this person, all the ways that you grew up kind of a similar way, that you were a baby, that you fell in love, that you had your heart broken, like really connect.
Yeah.
And then you walk around again and you connect with somebody else and it's imagine all the ways you're different, all the different ways that your universes have disconnected and had all these different experiences. But the last one, you wander around, you make eye contact with somebody and the narrator goes, imagine falling in love with this person. This person is the love of your life.
I just got chills.
I know, it's like,
Just stare at them and know that they love you intimately. And then you have this moment, you're like, oh my God, I think I'm in love.
Yeah, yeah. You
it's
just
just so
it like
beautiful.
triggers all of that rush of endorphins and everything. and it's
Which
just,
is interesting because
yeah.
I did my first, I started doing connection workshops in virtual reality.
Oh,
And so
that's cool.
at my job, I did my first one where Altspace has a way that you can invite a bunch of people into a space together, but you can have as many people in a space as you want. So between 5 and 20 people, 30 people, and then you can have multiple rooms and just fill them with people.
Yeah.
And then you break the space-time continuum and you mirror the host to each one of those rooms. So you can have 1,000 people watching the same experience because I am talking to all 1,000, but I am only seeing 20 at a time.
Yeah, you're not literally talking to a crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I had a spaces limited to 5 people because I wanted them to be able to connect with each other.
Okay.
And so I had like 20 rooms open, 5 in each. And then I told them different exercises to relate to each other and questions like, if you had to describe yourself from the person that loves you most in the world, how would they describe you and talk about it in the first person? So it'd be like, I'd be my mother and I go, oh, Katie tries so hard and she loves so deeply and she's like doing all these things and people will finally talk about themselves in a positive way. But I would go to these virtual spaces, see them talking about their experience, and you'd have somebody in Iowa talking to somebody that was in Norway, all like being like really
That's such a
intimate
cool-
and deep with each other.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that was a good moment for VR for me.
Yeah. Was there some sort of magical, just something that came out of that number 5 people in a room? There was a time in the past when I went to a language school, studied there for a year. This was always in the military. And they had us sitting in rooms of 5 to one teacher for an hour at a time. And then they would rotate out. You'd get a 10-minute break and then you get a new teacher. And it's the same 5 students, but a new teacher every time. So like, I'm wondering if there's some sort of research around that being like a threshold for how many people you can develop a more like intimate connection with.
I think it's probably based on our own experiences. I feel like as soon as you have the one-on-one, that's where I feel like a lot of my magic is when you finally can connect with somebody. But if you want the group experience of group connection, anything beyond 5, I feel like the people don't feel like they have a right to say anything.
Yeah.
5 still feels like, oh, I have to participate. I want to speak.
Like if one person's talking, it's an audience
Exactly.
rather than just talking to one another directly.
Exactly. But I'm
Yeah.
curious what the research there is.
Yeah, I am too. Because I mean, that was a particularly interesting, and also I feel like it was effective because I did make really close friends with every single person in that class. And it was only 5 other classmates, even though our entire cohort was maybe like 30, 40 people.
Yeah, and that's where my biggest interest is when it comes to, because I work at Altspace, but there's a lot of different social experiences in VR that I think the goal is how do you connect people as quickly as possible? Because right now,
Yeah.
your friends and family don't have virtual reality, so it's a lot of strangers interacting. So now we have to work harder designing a product so it like convinces people that they want to be closer friends. So things like that, like small amounts of people. How do you make people feel like they have a right to talk, that they want to speak?
That's super interesting. And also because like I've been in alt space and I get overwhelmed when there's like a group of people. And I'm like that. I'm so like talkative in real life, and I'll go up to people. I guess it's just, you know, I worry. It's the whole crowd effect of like I get intimidated by it,
I think I get
just as I
quiet in
would
groups,
in real
actually.
life. What'd you say?
Like there's certain settings where this doesn't happen, but like generally I tend to be an extrovert. It's like a certain mode because I also need the time alone to recover. So I'm probably not really an extrovert, but
It's a scale.
it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
Of course. But it's actually like whenever I end up in certain types of group settings, like more than 3 or 4 people, maybe 5, I'm not exactly sure. I tend to hang back and become part of the audience or like just a fly on the wall and observe more. And then there's certain times in like a classroom setting where for whatever other reasons, I feel suddenly more comfortable to just speak out and like ask questions and just participate more.
What about being in a classroom makes you feel more comfortable?
I think maybe because it's a structured environment where that's the purpose. And like lots of people don't feel comfortable asking questions in classrooms. So, I mean, maybe that is something specifically that in the way I interpret that. But I don't know. In classrooms, particularly like in college, I tended to be one of the people that was standing up and engaging the professor a lot more, particularly if I was interested in the topic.
Absolutely.
But I feel like maybe that's also getting into personality elements as well.
Well, it's interesting too what you said, Kelly, because I feel like virtual reality in a lot of ways, especially when you're entering a social environment, you're entering a different country. You don't know what the rules are. You don't know what the language is. You don't know what they agreed upon.
Weird. I didn't even think about
way
that.
people are interacting. So we have people that come into alt space that are just like, I don't know what the rules are or culture of this place. How I can't just enter into here and like be big and vocal. You need to wait and figure out, oh, like
And I'm like, do all these people know each other already? You know, like, am I the weird loser that's like accidentally teleporting everywhere?
yeah, probably.
Like, oh, I didn't mean to press that button.
It's not even.
Everyone's like, who's this girl?
Because it's not even trying to figure out the rules of the culture. It's you don't actually know how to physically move in space.
Yeah.
You are like a child entering a space. And you're like, I don't know how to move. I don't know how to talk.
How do I use my hands?
How do I even speak? Do I mute myself? Do I not? It's like the basics. And then you're also expected to talk to people. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. So, okay, because I have so many questions, but also I think we should, because we got into alt space way sooner than what I thought we would. Like, it just naturally came up in the weirdest way. But I feel like we should back up. So we're going to reverse. So let's reverse this. Then we'll keep talking about alt space and come back to learning more about Katie. Yeah. But I think we should get into, like, for anyone listening, if they don't know what alt space is or what social VR is, we should like talk a little bit about it.
This is what we were talking about earlier, is like making sure that people actually have the context
with you along the way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So alt space.
Tell us about it, Katie.
Yeah, give us some context
what is
on that.
So AltSpace VR is a social VR platform. And what that basically means is you can put on a headset anywhere in the world and you are in a room with other people. And we have everything from meetups to comedy shows to just sitting around and talking with your friends. But our goal is to give you a place where you want to be and connect with other people. And so what it feels like is when you put on your headset, you are an avatar. You can look down, you can see your hands move. You look up, you see other avatars around. Each of those avatars, every eyeball that you see is an actual person on another headset in some place in the world who has a VR headset on looking at you too. And it starts to feel really fast, like you're actually in this different environment. And so our goal is to make people feel really welcome. And one of the best ways for strangers to feel welcome in a space is to have an event that they're interested in. So our events can be things like you're talking about your favorite movie and it's a meetup, or we do have movie nights and we have LGBT meetups. We have, again, comedy shows and yoga classes and meditation classes.
Oh, that's cool.
We have over 100 events a week, and many of them are put on by our community just on topics that they are interested in talking to other people about.
That's really interesting because I haven't personally used AltSpace because I don't even have my own headset right now. I've definitely experimented with lots of other people's, but it's just not something that I've been able to utilize from like a recreational standpoint on a regular basis. So it's interesting to me that people find it worthwhile to jump in and have like this group cinematic experience where they're watching a movie together in a virtual space.
Absolutely.
Looking at a virtual screen.
Well, I think we're still in the place where the people that are using VR are very interesting people. Because you have to, well, that's
not your general population.
Well, no, not in the way that a lot of VR is much more attainable now. So you have the Oculus Go, it's $200. You can order, it comes to your place. So
you can use the cardboard.
Yeah, or the cardboard.
Yeah.
And I talked to, and you meet so many interesting people. So when you go into Altspace, you're just like, hi, who are you? And I met this one guy, he was in Scotland and he was in his mid 60s and his wife had just passed away and she had Alzheimer's for 10 years. And so he had gotten the Oculus Go during that time because it was a way for him to just try things outside of his sphere. He hadn't tried social VR yet.
Yeah.
And then after his wife passed away, he tried Altspace. And I talked to him. He said, I haven't had friends in 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't connected with people.
Okay.
And this woman that I've been talking to who lived in Arizona came up next to me and said, hi, my name's Laura. What's your name? And then just like took him by the virtual hand and then teleported off into some other space.
Whoa.
So it's people like him.
Yeah.
But then you also have, I talked to a mom that had just put her kids to bed. And she's like, I can't go to the neighborhood bar and see my friends.
And get that sort of social experience.
Exactly. But I can actually put on a headset and now I can meet my friends in virtual reality.
Huh. That is really cool.
Yeah.
There's so many. Well, yeah. There's so many different ways that the platform's being used that I think most people, when they look at that, their first thought is, well, it's inferior to real life. Why wouldn't you do it in real life? Like why wouldn't you actually go to the bar and hang out with friends, or why wouldn't you go to an actual movie with friends? But it's that connection, and it really expands your horizon and what you can do with other people.
We're also really privileged to be able to say we can do that when there's a lot of people in the world that can't, or they don't have access to the same experiences that we might in Seattle, Washington, that we can go downtown and go to a comedy show or something else. So you do. I met a woman today that says, I'm disabled. I can't go out as often as I would like. And I suddenly feel like I've created a whole community that I didn't have access to before.
Yeah.
We actually have quite a few of awesome users that identify with some disability. And there was a woman that has MS that's a comedian, and she can't go to she lives in New York. She can't walk downstairs to a tiny comedy club. So instead we gave her a VR headset and now she does comedy shows in VR on Sunday nights.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's more asking the questions like how do you make experiences more democratized? And also how do you give access to people? Because I had one of my favorite stories. I started the first LGBT meetup in Altspace probably like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I put on my headset and I just started asking everybody there, like, oh, like, what is it like being gay where you are? And some people, a couple talked about being gay in South Africa. Another guy was talking about how he was having to take a test because he lived in Turkey to prove that he was gay because they wouldn't let him join the military otherwise, but they didn't believe that he was gay. But then there was this girl that came up and she had actually tapped one of our other Altspace team members on the virtual shoulder, like just like waved in front of him and told him through text that I want to speak, but I can't say the word gay. And so he said, Katie, like this girl wants to speak, but she can't say the word gay because her family can hear her. And so I said, okay, what's one of your favorite like candies? And she goes, chocolate. So I said, okay, every time you want to say the word gay, say the word chocolate. So she told this entire group of people about her favorite types of chocolate, how many other people in her school love chocolate. And 1 month later, she lived in like rural Nebraska. 1 month later, she said that she could come out to her family because she actually found her community in VR that she felt like once a week she could say hi to. And she was like, oh, she never had access to that community before. And now all of a sudden she did. And so again, it's like all these people have access to experiences they never had before because of virtual reality.
Yeah.
Do people dance in Altspace a
Oh,
lot?
for sure.
How do you dance with the avatars? Because they're like,
question.
which that's exactly what I was going to ask too.
Ooh,
so like we're on the
Brain
same page.
twins. Air high five.
Oh, people come into Altspace and dance all the time. We've had a dance off where people use leap motions, and that allows you when you have a leap motion attached to your headset, your fingers are actually tracked.
Yeah, they're articulated.
Yeah, so
right?
we had a whole like finger dancing dance off.
Finger
a finger dance, like
yeah, so just like tons of movement of
like
fingers.
when
My fingers
are
are going
rave
crazy here,
and
people.
they do like the EDM sort of things
yeah.
with the glows.
Yeah, but
glow lights.
one of people's
Close.
favorite reasons to host an event in Altspace is just a dance party. So they'll just put on their favorite tracks. Like we have DJs DJs popping out from everywhere. Just put on their favorite music. People come in, and you just see bobbing.
They're like swaying back and forth
based on their headset. Because if you have the Go or the gear, it tracks your head movement and it tracks like one hand, so you can see like some hand movement.
True.
If you have the higher end headsets, you get like both hand action.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got two.
And then they have some full body tracking options too, so you can see like a little bit of leg movement, the whole thing going.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
That's intense.
Yeah.
I would definitely join for that. I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, and you don't need to worry about what you're wearing. I mean,
I was gonna say,
you never know. Like, there's always somebody there that's probably naked in their living room. But
I was just thinking
wearing
that, but
nothing but a
mostly
headset
for
and
myself.
socks.
But more power to
Just
them.
socks.
Yeah, why not?
Let's not get into the
Oh,
whole
God.
naked with just the socks.
Oh, wait. I want to.
You want to get
Go
into
there.
it?
Go
I
there.
feel like it's just.
I
it's
don't know. This could be dangerous. When Jay and I did an audio test, we talked about this for like at least an hour. But go ahead. You can just now we've talked about it too much. You got to give her the
Specifically naked
context.
dancing in just your socks.
So it's basically like we were talking about the different levels of awkwardness based on like these sort of unspoken rules, like when you have no pants on but a shirt, and you're just completely naked from the waist down. Like, why is that? Why does that feel so much more awkward than being without your shirt? Versus if you're wearing a shirt and shoes and socks and no pants, or just the different configurations that you could get into.
I don't know. That seems a little bit obvious to me.
What is your?
I just feel like there's like a certain portion of the genitalia that, when exposed, just feels a little bit more awkward than any other piece of open air body.
Well, if you're completely naked,
right?
That's like that. You're kind of uniform, so then you're just like, oh, I'm in my birthday suit, basically.
True.
If you're wearing a shirt, then that's a little more awkward because you're like,
I think there's a word for that.
Winnie the Pooh.
Do you know this word?
Just wearing the shirt?
No, there's the shirt shirt cockers.
Sure.
Did you guys not know this?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think this may not be appropriate for this.
I was just like, wow, we never thought about
like a term for.
Well, or no, I'm not talking about a term, but that's hilarious. You're like, I thought about this so much, but I don't have a term.
I never named it.
Now my
named
answers
this awkward state
are here. No, I was just thinking like we have no idea. Speaking of like what our audience will be, and so we're like, ooh, do we PG? I say just go for it, and we'll just put warnings. We'll say adult content.
Yeah, I was gonna say
F that.
Yeah, I think that was. I learned this again. I'm a burner, fair enough. It's only 6th year going.
Yeah.
But shirt cockers are always just kind of awkward because you could be like dancing out in the desert, and then you look to your right, and there's some person there. You're talking a little bit, and then you look down. You're like, oh, I really wish I hadn't done that.
Like,
really, no.
Keep the
eye
eyes,
contact.
Yeah,
because it's a surprise.
Yeah.
Shirt cockers are always a surprise.
You're like, it's not the good kind of surprise.
No.
Though. But wait a minute, are they wearing shoes too?
Yeah.
Or are they? Okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're in
and
the
socks,
desert
and probably
when
socks.
Well, I think that is even more awkward than being naked but with just a shirt. Like if you're barefoot, then it's like, okay, well, at least your feet are still uncovered with your legs, and it's like maybe this is pajamas for you. But if you have, if you have socks and shoes on, nothing on your bottom half, and then a shirt, then
like
all
an
of a
awkward
sudden,
sandwich.
yeah, it's like you were prepared to go out into public without anything
very
from the waist
prepared.
down.
Yeah, instead of just accidentally walking out with just you forgot
You
your
weren't
pants.
caught getting the mail early in the
Right.
morning or something.
Has this happened to you?
I know he has so many questions about it. It does
I
make
know
you
that's a
wonder.
very specific
It does.
circumstance, but no. Or like, you're going hiking, so you're like wearing your like calf socks and hiking boots, but no pants, and a nice a backpack maybe.
Oh, right.
Like that is another really awkward looking situation.
So just pretty much anything you add after the fact, it makes it more awkward.
Yeah, if you're doing anything without pants but other things as well,
Right.
like you were wearing everything else,
Right.
that's like the most awkward state that you could be in. Like you might as well just go completely nude at that point.
So, Katie, do you have any like good friends who are shirt cockers? Is that what it was called?
Yes.
Yeah, any
do?
burner shirt
No,
cockers?
I mean, that is what it was called. Do I have any friends that are shirt cockers?
Do they identify as a shirt cocker?
No, I think there's...
And is it mostly guys? Are there any girls?
No, I think shirt cockers are specifically guys.
What do you
So
call
what do
the girl
yeah,
version?
That's a good question.
I don't know. We can make that one up, but I feel like that would get pretty inappropriate.
Yeah. Shirt flowers.
Oh god. Like, how many different names can you switch out?
I think actually you might be my first shirt cocker friend. I feel like you have.
Wait, what?
You seem really into this.
No. Maybe, I think this
you're
is
you're a potential. You're a potential shirt
I
cocker.
actually think this is like one of my worst fears is to be caught in the state of a shirt cocker. Yeah,
Meaning,
caught
like,
unaware is like, oh wow.
about to put your pants on? Or
Well, no, like
what?
caught in a situation where I put my shoes on and my shirt and somehow forgot to wear pants and
Do you
underwear.
have nightmares about this?
It sounds like it.
It's the worst possible social situation. It's just an interesting conversation topic.
I'm just like imagining you as a baby getting ridiculed by your family.
Like you
like
lose
you're a baby
your diaper.
and you just like, you lost your diaper and everyone laughs so hard that it stuck with you for the rest of your life.
I've
And now
been
you have
scarred
memories
from
about
some
it.
sort of subliminal experience that I had when I was a kid, and I've just erased the memory.
You just had, this is like an
but it's
identity.
just this weird obsession now.
Yeah.
We'll help you work through it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this becomes a therapy session
Right.
to rid me of my fear of shirt cocking.
Right. So,
Anyways,
so we were talking about dancing in alt space.
I'm sure most people are fully clothed while they're dancing in all space.
It is a little scary. It's kind of like that fear of when you were, when going on to AOL for the first time or something, and it's like, it could be anyone.
Yes, I think no matter what, you walk into the internet, you never know what's going to happen. What I found with alt space that
part
is
of the digital
surprising
environment.
to me is that most people seem to be generally good, knocking on wood. But
Okay.
so far, I have found that, we've done a lot of work. Like, we are obsessed with trying to have a welcoming experience. We have 24/7 moderation. So when you go into alt space, you will find somebody that works for our team that is ready there to answer your questions, help you with anything, and hopefully get any bad actors out as soon as possible.
in every space?
No, in our lobby, in our campfire space. So our
gotcha.
communal spaces has somebody there that you can go and find, but you can
Okay,
always easily
gotcha.
find them. And then we also have tools like blocking and muting, so that if somebody has, usually it's just because they have a dog in the background or something, or they're right next to an airplane. I don't know. So you can mute somebody so you don't need to hear them. Or if they are being inappropriate, you can block them so you never need to see them. They don't know that they've been blocked. No,
Or
no harm,
muted.
no foul.
They don't know that either.
No,
Oh, like so they have no idea.
they have no idea. And then
That's-
also you have
that's
this, you have a space bubble too that you can turn on and off so people can't enter your space.
Oh,
So those tools and other things, I think in general have made it a pretty positive experience. But we've done, we did a partnership with NBC probably 2 years ago during the presidential elections. And we showed live streams of the presidential debates between Hillary and Trump. And then we also had Al Roker, Chuck Todd, and Steve Kornacki putting on headsets and doing a live newscast in VR.
wow, that's really cool.
And so we had a meeting before the NBC live streams, and we were asking ourselves, we're inviting people from both sides of the political spectrum into a space together and having them watch these things and talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This sounds like a disaster.
Talk about risky. Yeah, seriously.
yeah.
And so we were all prepared. We had moderators in every single space. And what we found was when people were actually there, they talked. They worked through their stuff. Like
They had actual
They had
conversation.
actual
Yeah.
conversations. Some of them they would get angry, but they couldn't hurt each other. And also, it still turned
You,
into
you don't feel in physical danger.
no
but
physical
altercation.
danger,
Weird.
but also
Yeah.
they still were talking. So on YouTube, you look at the comments and it's just like people just mouthing off at each other. But when you're
Yeah.
making actual physical eye contact with somebody, even though they're an avatar, you
You
feel
still
like
know they're looking
there.
at you.
Yes,
Like
There's
you
still
feel
that
that
social
you
pressure.
know they're watching you.
Exactly.
And you are watching them.
and somehow that seems to make you a less nasty person to a point where you are actually sometimes a good citizen. And then you found people that were really kind and open and having these really genuine conversations.
So it seems to bridge some of those things that are lacking from the experience of like debating on Twitter or any sort of just
asynchronous
purely,
conversation.
Yeah.
It seems to make people want to connect more.
Okay.
And so that gave me a lot of hope for Altspace being a place where you go in and you're just like, oh, like I actually want to be here. And people have made lifelong friends. People have gotten
Yeah.
married. We've had, I think, 4 weddings now, people meeting in Altspace, then meeting in real life, and then getting married.
That's awesome.
Some of them get married in alt space, don't they?
Yeah, we had the first social VR wedding. I have to be careful with how I say that because there was
wow.
actual VR wedding in like the 1990s that we found out after the fact.
They
Oh.
were pissed.
Like that was not the first
They
one.
sent us a nice little note. They're like, "You're not the first." I was like, "We're never," because VR loves being the first. You always
Yeah,
see
of
people be
course.
like, I do have one first that I'm
I was
proud
gonna say,
of.
yeah.
My first was I taught the first yoga class in VR.
No way.
I
okay,
did.
That's
I
awesome.
did.
I didn't know that.
And
That's a good
I had a
accomplishment.
Vive trackers, and I saw everybody in front of me like lifting their
Doing
arms
downward
into
dog.
the air. No, you can't do downward dog in VR because
Oh.
the headset will fall off. So I came up a whole VR. Came up with a whole VR yoga class that took advantage of standing poses.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
That's really cool.
But so people have gotten married. And the wedding that was actually in VR, we had the officiator was our social media manager who was actually able to officiate the wedding in California, marrying 2 people in England. And then just in case it wasn't legal, even though technically it should be, I mean, why not? They're in a space together. There's an officiator. They went across the street and got really married just in case. But they had their wedding in Altspace.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you attended a wedding in Altspace?
I attended that one.
You attended
Oh,
that one.
yeah. No, that was super exciting.
What was there anything like different about that wedding that you can't get? Like, would you want to have a VR wedding for any reason?
It was
even if you didn't meet in VR or something.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Is there a draw?
I think there's an industry there because what they did is they sent VR headsets to anybody that couldn't come to the wedding. And so people were able to just put on the headset and join them.
The ceremony.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which
And then he had fun. The guy that put it on, he had a whole slideshow of like their memories together that he played halfway through, and there was like some music and dancing, and they had a whole environment that was like it was like this like floating platform in space with like fireworks and moons and stuff going by.
Oh, wow.
It was lovely.
That's
it was
amazing.
So lovely.
Yeah, I guess you could construct.
Maybe cheaper. I don't know.
Yeah, you
That's
don't
actually
have to
a
rent all the
great
space.
question, though. It's like, how many animators would it take, or like model builders, to
many
like
animators
build
does
your
it take to put on
perfect environment and then like cost check that with the real world?
Yeah, I mean,
That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, you could create some pretty incredible environments in virtual reality without spending tens of thousands of dollars, I feel like.
It's true.
I've created one wine glass and blender, so I have that. I have that going for me.
Well, one of my favorite stories I like to tell too, my first friend that I met in VR was living in Bangladesh when I met him, and he was an aid worker from Canada. And so he had been living in Bangladesh for about 2 years, working there, and his family had moved over with him. And then there was a terrorist attack there about 2 years ago now. And I had traveled through Bangladesh the year before, so I knew the place, and I was just so excited to meet him. I'm like, oh, you live in Dhaka? That's so fascinating. Oh, this terrorist attack. And he's like, yeah, it was really terrible. We actually lost a couple of friends. And he was in Italy at the time with his family. And so his whole family had to go back to Canada for safety reasons, but he had to stay in Bangladesh and finish out his work. So now he was living in Bangladesh and taking an armored vehicle to work and back, and he wasn't able to go out at night because there was just nobody would go out after this terrorist attack. And so he built a computer, bought a Vive, and then started using Altspace for all his social interactions. And so I met him and I'm just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And so I asked our CEO at the time if I can go to Canada to visit his family to give them VR headsets so they can meet their dad in VR.
Yeah.
So I go over there and I fly to Canada. I go to Ottawa and I'm walking up the driveway to this guy's house who I've never met. I just know him in virtual reality, and his name is Meth in virtual reality. And his daughter is outside and she sees me and she runs back inside, and I hear her audibly yell to her mother, "She doesn't look like an axe murderer." So I go in and I meet them.
Haha. No, I'm kidding.
Little
Then you
did
pull
you
it
know.
out from behind
And then
your
I
back.
murdered them with an axe. They're like, oh, that's an
They're like, my trunk is full of axes.
No, I wouldn't do that. And so I put them in VR headsets, a whole family. So it was a mom and 2 girls. And the Meth had created a 360 photo, a world inside a 360 photo of his daughter Lily's bedroom. And so I put on the headset on Lily, and she looks around, and she like lights up. She goes, "There's my giraffe."
Yeah.
And you have to remember, she hadn't seen her bedroom because from Italy, she had to go straight to from Italy to Canada. So she had not been to her bedroom, and she looks around, and she goes, "There's my giraffe." And then she turns all the way around and she lights up. She goes, "Dad." And then for the next hour, this family, and I'm just seeing like one end of the situation, they run around and they play with their father in Altspace. I talked to Meth the next day over Skype, and he says, "I've tried Skype, I've tried phone calls, but every time it makes me feel far from my family."
Yeah.
But he said last night
It's like a wall.
he's like, last night in Altspace, the memory of it, the actual physical memory of it is hanging out with my children, not like putting on a headset and
You
being in
forget
this world.
the interface.
You forgot entirely.
Yeah.
Those are the stories that I'm like, okay, in periods of necessity, people are using this technology and showing what could happen over the next years as we make the technology better and better,
Yeah.
what it can do for everybody.
On that particular note, as right now you say that there's certain groups that are adopting the technology, and it's still early in its development. We haven't really gotten like general public adoption yet.
I think those in VR would agree. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does it look like from your perspective, as far as like projecting outwards to get to a point where more people are adopting it? Is that the goal for you all? And then how do you hope that people in general are using this in the near future, like in the coming decades? I mean, lots of people would look at it from like a dystopian perspective as well and say all kinds of negative things, or say that it's completely ideal. So I'm just interested in like...
Yeah, we love our post-apocalyptic scenarios. I think Altspace is obviously hoping that this becomes more easily accessible, so everybody has a chance to decide for themselves the value that it brings into their own lives. And I think that's the goal for most technology. It's not like we don't want necessarily Altspace to be the thing that connects everybody, but if it brings value into people's lives, like we want people to have access to it.
Yeah.
What's preventing people from doing that, I think, is really you have these VR headsets. It's very exciting to put on your head and you experience all these games. But the problem is that when you put it down, it's really hard to have a reason to put it back on your head.
Yeah.
It's and even just the feel of it. It's heavy. You are separating yourself from the people around you. You have to be kind of by yourself.
Yep.
I think they found that most people use it at night because the rest of their family goes to bed, so they feel like it's more socially appropriate to put on their head.
Yeah.
Like that, we are a long way from it being as easy as like taking out your phone from your pocket, looking at it, interacting really easily.
Yeah.
It's like it's just so cumbersome. So I think it's partly like we need amazing designers to create something that feels really easy and accessible to put on your head.
There's a lot of engineering problems still around just making them less cumbersome in general.
And a way, too, that
It's not a helmet.
includes the people around you.
Yeah.
Like, there's cool games like this game called Keep Talking, Nobody Explodes, which if you haven't tried it, it's just somebody is in a VR headset, and the only way for them to succeed in the game that they're seeing are the people around them are helping them with clues.
Oh, so it's like you play it in your living room with your family?
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
gotcha.
And I think that was an amazing show of, okay, let's bring everybody together into this VR experience.
Yeah.
If it's just you by yourself, it's just, there's not much there.
Yeah.
Are you seeing in Altspace what you've observed, that it's strangers meeting each other and then becoming friends in Altspace and then continuing that friendship? Or like, are people who are already friends deciding to meet up a lot just as much in Altspace?
So our goal was always to be the best place for you to feel like you could see your friends and family, but we realized really early on that your friends and family didn't have VR headsets.
Right.
So that's why we really try to nail that stranger to stranger interaction and make friends, so we can create the community that then is going to be the evangelists of VR to their friends and family.
Yeah.
But what we found is that there are people that are using it. Like my father has become the biggest champion of VR. He has a Rift and he visits me in Altspace all the time. I have an event every Wednesday from 5 to 5:30. My father just randomly shows up. I'm like, Dad.
Aw,
But
Dad.
it's so fun because
Yeah.
you know a little bit about this, but my mom's been sick for 15 years. She can't leave the house. My dad takes care of her in Oregon. So I never had the chance to really hang out with him all the time because it's hard for him to come and visit me. And so now VR has all of a sudden created this like really interesting way for us to interact and have fun. And I actually got at one point my grandfather in VR talking. He was in New York. My father was in San Francisco, and they were talking through a VR headset, and it transformed my grandfather's life. He was like, "Oh my god!" He was so confused the entire time, but he loved every minute of it. Another one. There's a father-son that come into Altspace. The son is a paraplegic, and so the son wears an Oculus Go. His father wears a Rift, and then they hang out in Altspace because they feel like they can move around and play and interact with people.
Yeah.
And so you meet people like that, and so people are really trying to think of how do I use this with my friends and family to have a good time. There's a couple too that wrote a article about being in London and then being in California. They were doing a long distance relationship, and then they went to Altspace and they went through a maze together, and they went to our tavern, and they did all sorts of games with each other, and they felt like, oh, this is like we actually got to see each other.
Yeah.
So people are using it that know each other, but I think right now we are more likely to have people who are strangers meeting each other in Altspace.
Yeah. Interesting. When you go in into Altspace, there's different events, as you mentioned. So it could be anything from like concerts to just like a campfire, to dancing and, with no clothes on.
Or no pants.
So you guys have Altspace has its own, I forget what you called it, but it's like its own its own rooms, like the ones that Altspace kind of owns, where you said you have a moderator in there and everything. What is
Our
it called?
lobbies.
Your lobbies.
Yeah, it's the campfire right now is where most people hang out.
Okay. And then how does it work? So other people build their own spaces, and then do they like submit that? How do you even approve it?
So we have a couple different ways that you can create content in Altspace. The easiest thing that anybody can do automatically is you can create an event, and you can use one of our environments we already have. You can decide whether it's a meetup or something else. If you want to create your own space, you can go into an empty space, and we have a world builder feature where you click on a button and it gives you all these things that you can drag and drop and create your own world, like Minecraft style. So people have created amazing things. Yeah, it's just an editor.
Okay.
For Halloween, there were 8 different users that created different parts of a haunted house, and then we all went in and haunted it. So it was so fun.
So you played the parts.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
I was going around just being like, "Who stole my body?" It was so funny. Just random people that would around the world
awesome.
just put an
So good
Oculus
at
Go
that.
and just like wander around, and they made this haunted house. So you can create
Do you
those.
have previous experience being a ghost? 'Cause
Oh,
you're
I'm
very
so
good at that.
at ghosting.
I'm creeped out.
And then if people have general coding skills, we have an SDK, so you can use Node.js, and you can actually build your own environments, and you can make games and activities that you can share with your friends.
Gotcha.
So based on and also we have a Unity uploader tool. So if you have a Unity environment, you can bring it into Altspace. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can actually create your own content and then share it with your friends.
Yeah. And has that been like the primary way that, or have you all done more work, or has the community done more work in creating all these interesting environments and like organically grown the content for Altspace?
So we feel like we fail if we don't build Altspace with our users. So there are a lot of environments that are beautiful, created by our artists that work out on Altspace. But most of the content that you run into in Altspace it's probably community generated, either if it's an event created by a community member, or they've used one of our environments and made it their own, or they've created their own world. So in a lot of ways, we are very like user generated platform. But we try to have some really awesome showcase examples of what our artists have made.
Do people have to like compete to market their own rooms? Like I feel like I would create my room and nobody would come, and I'd be so.
You're like, how do I get more people to join me?
Well, luckily, VR is so new that now you can make things and like people actually like have the chance to see them. But for all of our content,
Maybe it's not inundated yet.
Good point.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
the time to get in, Jay.
Get in early.
But we do anything that a user will run into, we do approve, just to make sure that like we want to being inclusive, being welcoming is really important to us. So people can create whatever they want and they can have private rooms. But if it's something that our users can interact with, we definitely make sure that it's good for people to see.
But then how do they get it out to people? How do they let people know they have a room?
If it is featured by us, then we have a worlds tab. So in Altspace, you can go to worlds and you can see all the different worlds that people have made that we have approved.
That you've approved. I see. Okay, got it.
So you mentioned again moderating, or just different things that you do to moderate users. What happens with those individuals that do get blocked by other people? Like, how do they? I mean, you mentioned that they don't really know that they're not being listened to, or they're being blocked. So, like, what is the?
I try to block Jay all the time. When he reads out loud.
Wait, really?
When you read out loud and I'm like, read to yourself, Jay.
Yeah.
That's me trying to
like,
block you.
Gently tap the shoulder and you're like, you need to read in your head.
Yeah, one way that VR has made things so much easier than real life.
Right? Like, if only I could silence him without him knowing.
Which that's like a Black Mirror sort of concept.
I
If you've seen
know.
that
It is a
series.
little bit.
Then
It
I
is a
would
little
hear
bit.
your
like,
silly
the-
voices.
Yeah.
Like when you read Shakespeare. Anyways, back to the question. Yeah, what happens to the blocked?
Yeah, like what happened? Yeah, what happens to the people that? Oh God, I don't want to quote Black Mirror so much, but there was a whole episode about.
I remember this.
Yeah, the societally shunned individuals.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
It's a good one.
It was
It's a
the
good one.
Instagram kind of like rating
I
people.
didn't see it
and-
because I am the shunned.
So maybe you should tell us
Yeah,
how
I'm,
you feel
I'm
about
completely oblivious. No idea.
Like, why?
So we hope that people use the block tool as much as they need. And so it's not just necessarily blocking bad actors. Like a lot of times it's more that people just want to, they want to define the social circle that they're in. And so if they just don't really like somebody or want to see them, they can block them. And again, that people do that.
Yeah.
People that are blocked often, hopefully if it is because they're a bad actor, it gives them more incentive to not come back, because now they're not getting any reciprocity to their actions because nobody's there anymore or paying attention to them, or they've been blocked so often that it's not interesting to be there.
Yeah.
So our hope is then that they just leave and never come back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would have used that. I should have used that on a guy. A guy was
rough.
burping really loud in alt space once. He was burping a lot, and I was like, "Can you
I'm
not?"
sorry that
But I
happened
didn't
to
use
you.
the blocking because he wasn't like technically doing anything wrong, and I actually think he just had indigestion. Like, I don't think he was like trying to like upset me or other people, or he was just
Like,
one
you're
of
a
those
bad
people.
person because you burp too much.
You should have gone up to him and just been like, "You need some water? Can I get you something?"
so
Do a
scared.
glass of water.
Yeah,
We had somebody order us pizza one
I was
time.
gonna say, like, I could order you a pizza.
Yeah.
And-
we
and
had somebody ordered a pizza from Altspace and from inside Altspace and then sent it to our office.
That's
no
awesome.
way.
Yeah.
Oh man,
He wanted to do the first virtual delivery.
Wait, was there a delivery person that came up in Altspace as well?
No, that would have been funnier though.
I was gonna say, like, that door opens and there's a virtual pizza
That
guy.
would've been good.
and it's not real pizza. And
Yeah,
they're
like everyone
"What
shares
the
these
fuck?"
virtual
that would-
slices. And,
That would just piss me off.
Yeah.
like, yeah, I ordered you Domino's in Altspace, not in real life.
Actually, that's kind of like a good question. It's like, what's been one of your like biggest disappointments in alt
Or
space?
frustrations.
Ooh.
As like a user or as somebody that is creating in the VR space.
Let's talk about as a user first.
Yeah.
So my biggest disappointment, I think, was initially when VR just launched on the major headsets. This is probably like 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
And within probably a month, the first sexual harassment cases started coming in. It actually wasn't through Altspace.
Okay.
It was the news cycle for VR was full of sexual harassment now all over VR.
Yeah.
And we reacted in a really interesting way because I think in general we knew no matter what, they have a phrase that's kind of terrible called TTP, time to penis.
What? Who's
What?
they? Who has
So
this?
when you are developing,
Who coined that?
if you are in any way a conscious developer creator in any MMO space, you need to think
MMO
being multiplayer,
massively multiplayer
online. Yes. So any
Anything.
of your World of Warcrafts, all the games that have a lot of people in a space together.
MMORPGs. Yeah.
No matter your faith in humanity, you have to think as a creator, the thing that I am making, how fast is somebody going to abuse this?
Yeah.
It's just
And exploit the.
and you have to think of the worst of humanity. It's like the worst person, what could they do with this? And then you have to design to make sure that the worst can't happen. And so they came up with this phrase, the time to penis, is just like, what is the thing that I'm building and how fast can somebody abuse this or draw a penis out of it?
Yeah.
So wait, use that in a sentence. Like if you're in a meeting, you would
Yeah,
be
what-
like,
what is the time
you
to
would be
penis of
like,
the speaker?
yeah, what is the TTP? Is that it?
Yes.
Like we're
Yes.
implementing
Oh
a virtual
my
whiteboard. What
God.
is the time to penis? Literally like 5
Yep.
seconds.
Yep.
the time it takes to draw one.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, what is the TTP here? And then it gives you moments.
3 milliseconds.
Exactly. And you have to think it through. So when the sexual harassment cases started hitting, our team was like, okay, we know this is going to happen in Altspace. What can we do to avoid this and try to cut it off at the pass? And we actually had some awesome women on our team, and that actually developed our first space bubble.
Space bubble.
Space bubble. So an actual physical bubble around your space so people cannot get into your space.
Got you.
To potentially harass you,
Basically a
grab
hitbox
you. Yeah.
in the environment.
Can you
Exactly.
see your bubble?
No, you cannot. So it's an invisible bubble. It's around you at all
Force
times.
field.
But can others see your bubble?
No.
So
So,
then-
So they'll like stop if they're trying
they
to
will
come towards
disappear.
you.
So if they put their
Oh.
hand into your space, your hand disappears. It's fascinating.
Wow.
But then you have to. But then you get if you're. I nerded
Okay.
about this so hard. So you have to be careful though about your space bubbles because
Yeah.
you have to think through. Okay, so if I am maybe a bad actor and going towards you, Kelly, and I put my hand out into your space, my hand's going to disappear because then I'm not getting any satisfaction about like.
You're like, you don't get to see yourself poking
Got
a
it.
person.
It
Exactly.
disappears to you and it also disappears to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
But the hard thing is that for the third person point of view, you always have to think through what do they see. Because you don't want somebody to be able to abuse somebody third person. But the problem is that we realized this was a learning moment. So
Yeah.
if you have your space bubble turned on and you're a troll, you could technically hang out in like a doorway, and then everybody that goes through that doorway disappears.
Yeah.
So you have to
Yeah.
be really careful. It's like, you have to think through the first person, second person, and third person point of view with anything that you create.
Yeah.
But luckily what we found is that, so if you are a third person point of view, you will see the interaction. But the thing is, because the person can't see their interaction happening, they actually can't troll you very well.
Yeah.
There's no
They
way
don't-
there's no satisfaction for the third person. So we were able to be like, okay, the third person does not see it.
You're really
The first
mitigating
and second
the-
person does. But this is why
I'm so confused, and I apologize, but so my thought was the troll or whatever is the person doing the action, but no, we're talking about a third person.
Who's watching the two?
So
interact.
there's the predator, who's
Yeah.
the person. Let's say in this example, they're attempting to grope.
yes.
Okay, you're a grope.
You're a
Grope my avatar. So Katie, you're the groper. You're trying to.
I would never do that.
I know you would though. I think you would.
You're cute. You're not that cute. I'm kidding. She's very cute. She's
This is
very
going.
cute.
This is getting out of hand.
Yes, Kelly, I would grope you. Does
Okay,
that
but
make
let's
you feel
say,
better?
for example's sake, okay, so Katie, you're the groper. You attempt to grope me. I have my space
I'm
bubble
just
on.
the
So
bystander
your
here
hand,
watching.
Yeah, well, literally, that's what I'm going to get into. So your
This is an
your
interesting
hand
situation.
disappears into my bubble.
Yes.
And I don't
To you.
see your hand, and you don't see it either.
Exactly.
So you essentially become handless. You lose a hand.
Yes.
And you're talking about what Jay might see in this scenario.
Exactly.
But I see a person groping digitally another person.
Well, the thing is, my hand disappears, so I can't grope her anymore. I don't know where my hand is in space.
you don't.
As the groper, like
Right,
I no
right.
longer see it. So it would be hard for me to create a situation where you as a third person is seeing the trolling because I can't actually physically see what I'm doing.
Yeah, so it's
Oh,
really.
But
your
what you were
movement's not
initially
accurate.
saying or kind of assuming is that there was a time where Jay was the third person could see what was happening. That's the only
Well,
person who could
right
see what's
now,
happening?
yes, the third person can see everything that's happening because
Yeah.
you don't want people to troll with their space bubble. So if I'm a troll
Yeah.
and I want to use a space bubble for evil, I could go into a communal space and wander around and make people disappear. I could stand next to you and make you disappear.
Oh, it
Right?
just
Yeah.
clicked.
So that, like,
It
you
just
can't participate
clicked.
in
Now
and
I
interact
get
with
it.
people.
Exactly.
I know you said that with the doorway thing, and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
But now I do.
It's just
okay,
but it's interesting for anybody designing for a VR space. You have to think of all the different perspectives.
right?
So
It's like you need a troll on your team to be like, how would you troll this environment?
yeah, like you got to get somebody that thinks that way and is like, yeah,
Exactly.
let me try to like exploit and break this in every possible way.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so the conclusion was that these third
third person can see.
they can see everything because
Yes.
that way,
Yeah, but it's very hard
Okay.
to do something intentionally weird.
right,
as the
without
person
being able to
trying
have
do
a
it.
hand or an arm. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
And also, they're not getting any satisfaction out of it because they're not seeing it
Yeah.
themselves.
Right.
So you may unintentionally see groping happen.
Yes, that's
as
true.
a bystander.
That's true. It's like, was that an accidental grope? I think I saw
You're
an
like,
accidental
I
grope.
saw. Wait, okay. Never mind.
Well, actually,
the intent was not there.
we don't have to get into this now because I feel like you had a question, but I do want to come back to or discuss now. Like, is there like sex in alt space?
Oh.
Do
That
people
is-
like? Okay, well, here's why. Because I did see people making out one time, and I was
Wait,
like, "Is that
really?
wanted?" And,
Well,
and
is
it was
that
as close to
satisfying?
making out as possible. I don't know.
How?
I mean,
Like,
it was
you're
like they
just-
were kind of joking around, being like, "Blah, blah," you know. But like that makes me think about like, do people actually use it as like a love?
Well,
Like an intimacy.
I can talk about virtual hugs. And
Oh,
and it's interesting. That's become kind of a thing. So when I see my friends in alt space, I get really excited. I turn off my space bubble and I go up to them and we have like a really good hug.
Oh, okay.
But
So
the
you let down your guard for a second.
Yeah.
and you-
Oh yeah. Many times I don't have my space bubble on because I'm just
Yeah.
like I'm around friends. You want to
Yeah.
like side kiss the whole deal, like the cheek kiss.
You just like lean in.
Yeah, but
type
it
thing.
feels really real. So
because you
so
see them
c-
come close to you.
Yeah. Yeah, you feel like you
so-
feel like you
yeah.
are in their physical space,
Yeah.
and you actually feel like a little bit of like an endorphin rush from
Yeah.
like the
From the
hugs.
proximity. Yeah.
So you could assume that if that is true, then all the ways that people can interact probably like feels hopefully good.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
yeah,
So with people in a space like that where they're like disembodied in a way, and we were talking about this earlier with like platforms like Twitter or Facebook, just general normal social media. Obviously people are completely detached, so they can just be as rude as they want to everyone else. Whereas in alt space, you can tell that someone's making eye contact with you, and that brings it down to a level of interaction where you feel like you need to be more respectful.
Mhm.
But how much, I mean, with people that are doing the trolling and like the whole reason that you need to have that sort of protective bubble sometimes, like I'm not even sure how to really phrase the question. It's more around just the disembodiment psychology of like putting on a mask. I feel like there's still a lot of that where you're having a dance party. I feel like I would be a lot less hesitant to just go crazy because you're not looking at my actual body. You're looking at my digital self.
True. I think we're getting closer. So I think when you go from Twitter or Facebook and you go into alt space or any sort of VR environment, I think you feel a little bit more there, or like quite a bit more there. I think it's leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
But you still feel like you have an anonymity.
There's like a separate self.
Yes.
That is people are looking at.
But I think that's what those that are creating the future that this technology is going to be tasked with, is how do we make that that line, or that line between reality and you feel closer.
Yeah, like your external or your separate identity in the virtual space.
Right.
And trying to merge that and get that ever closer to your centered identity.
And I think if you talk to a bunch of people in alt space, I think they'll say like they are actually there. That is them. They feel connected to their avatar and their body, and they feel like it's really them. So even the trolls, I feel like in alt space don't really last very long, because they're the people that come in for a day and then they leave for good. The people that stay, like they honestly feel like it's their home, it's their community, it's they feel attached to the person they are there.
Yeah. So it's like after a period of time, you decide, if you embrace it, like you really decide to kind of suspend your own disbelief and separation from the avatar, and you just kind of take ownership of it.
And I think if you try it, I'd be really curious to hear what you think, because I think it's actually not that hard to do.
Yeah.
Like I feel when I go in there, I am my avatar.
Yeah.
It feels I see my hands, they are my hands. Same like when you're driving and you hit somebody else, you don't say my car hit somebody else, you said I hit somebody else. You become the body of the thing that you are currently in, and an avatar is just like a car.
I wonder, so I would imagine it's all the same with MMOs or RPGs. When you're playing a character in a video game or something like that and you're becoming that character, I guess the difference is that you're rarely actually playing yourself. You are literally playing a character.
And that's a distinction that alt space makes. We hope that you feel like you are your authentic self in alt space. So we encourage people to have their real names, to kind of look like themselves if they want to choose an avatar that feels like them. We don't want you to play a part. We want you to be you.
Yeah. Do you find that there are certain types of people or people with certain backgrounds or past experience that are able to embrace that or suspend that disbelief of identity more easily than others?
Can you give me an example? What kind of backgrounds?
So from my own personal experience, I have a really good friend of mine who lives on the East Coast. We've grown up together. Like we knew each other since middle school, I think. And we've played a lot of video games of different kinds growing up. We're both the type of people that always really enjoyed RPGs in particular, or role-playing games where you take on another character and you just play as if that is you. And in these games, whether it was an RPG or an MMO online or it's Minecraft on like a server, we very easily just drop into this state where we're looking at one another's avatars through a computer monitor, not a VR headset. But we can look back years later on some experience or adventure that we had in a Minecraft server. And when I think about it and talk about it, it's like we actually did that. It doesn't feel any different than when we both lived in Hawaii together and were hiking in the mountains. It really does not feel that different as a memory than when we were hiking through mountains in Minecraft at one point.
Did you hear about the Marshmallow concert in Fortnite a couple weeks ago?
I feel like I've heard that mentioned, but I don't know about it.
So in Fortnite, one of the most popular games, or the most popular game right now, especially among
all the streaming
especially among the teenagers,
they
did this really innovative thing where the game is basically you are dropped into a world and you battle royale until the last person's left. And they're like, oh, what else can we do with that? So they invited Marshmallow, one of the coolest EDM artists out there, to come in and do a concert. So they built a stage, they built an avatar of Marshmallow with a marshmallow head, and then they had giant dancing marshmallows next to him. And then people came in, they turned off all the killing things so you couldn't kill each other. And people just went and they could program themselves to dance and do this, and go to this concert.
They do their whole
Yeah, and I was contacted by Wired the next day because they were just like, "Hey, you guys have been doing this for years," and I was so glad that he made that connection because. And what was interesting about the Marshmallow concert is that I was talking to a mom that works over at Microsoft, and she was like, "Yeah, my son's going to go to this concert this weekend," and the way she phrased it is, he is going to a concert. He felt like he was going to his first concert.
Yeah.
This was not, I am going in a game and I am a character and I'm going to go to a concert. I am physically going to this
And it's
concert.
not even in VR for the Marshmallow concert,
No,
right? Like
no.
this is just looking at your computer screen.
And they felt like they were there.
Ah.
And so we're taking it another
Yeah.
step forward where you are actually in the audience experiencing these things. We had Reggie Watts come 2 or 3 months ago, and he's the band, the leader of the band for the Late Late Show. And he does shows in VR.
Yeah.
And people go and they're just like, "Oh my God, like I gotta see Reggie. I gotta like have this moment with Reggie." They felt like they were there with Reggie Watts.
Yeah.
I heard too that he also likes, I don't know who was telling me this, maybe you were, but he likes to also have people in the room with him, meaning as a performer, you can decide to actually not really be in the room with avatars. Is that right? But
That's
he
true.
always decides to have people in the room.
Yeah, because he wants to engage and talk to people.
Which obviously that makes
feel
sense.
like others
but
are
still,
there
yeah.
experiencing it. Yeah, that's just I have a hunch that depending on like your experiences growing up, like your brain can be trained to more easily like disembody. So like some people have a more difficult time doing that and dropping into that sort of environment outside of VR. I feel like VR just lowers the barrier and just makes it that much easier for you to do
I could see that.
because it's just more convincing overall. It's more senses.
Do you find, Katie, that like your avatar and how much time you spend in alt space, you say it's your most authentic self, but is there anything that you like about your avatar or your kind of persona in alt space that you don't get in real life? Or
That's
that you're
a
almost
really interesting question.
That is.
The thing that has come out with me in VR that I didn't expect. So I do a lot of events in Altspace. I've hosted a bunch of random celebrities and talked to thousands of people. And that's never been part of my personality. I've never been a presenter. And then all of a sudden in this role, now that I've done it so many times, and usually it's when everything's going wrong. Like we try really hard to push the boundaries on like live events in VR. And when you're doing live anything, you're always ready for things to just you just want to give up. You just want to give up. And so I've been in a situation where I've been on stage talking to thousands of people and everything's going wrong and feeling awesome and feeling great about it and bringing them along with them. I'm like, everything's broken. And they're like, everything's broken. But then when it goes right and everybody's so excited and they're just like cheering you on.
Like they don't care that there were, things that happened in the meantime.
Exactly. Because it's exactly why people tune in to watch a live musical on NBC.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't know what could go wrong, but it's also so interesting to be a part of that live experience. Yeah. And so I tapped into this part of me that I had no idea was this like performer / like presenter.
Okay.
And it's opened up a whole side of me where I feel my public speaking skills have gotten better. And now I do like talks more often, but it's all thanks to Altspace.
Yeah.
And we've actually talked about having just, what are those called? Toastmasters?
Yeah.
In
or
Altspace.
even like debates. I think it's all the same.
Yeah. It's such an easy way for people to get on stage and just talk to a bunch of people. It's like you don't even need to imagine them in their underwear.
You can literally
avatars.
And afterwards you can literally disappear. You're like, exit the environment.
if you lost the debate and you're just completely embarrassed, you could just log
Exactly.
You freeze up and black out.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so interesting. That was a great answer.
So
Thanks for
what was it about the environment in Altspace that I guess brought you over that threshold where like you didn't discover that element of yourself in normal world or normal reality, but something about Altspace and being in that digital arena sort of brought it out?
I think it's partly that you don't feel because everybody they're all avatars. It doesn't quite feel as insane as like being on top of a stage and just seeing like
every single expression,
everybody staring at
reaction.
you. Yeah. So I think it was maybe that, but it was also it feels very familial. And also I've been a part of this community for so long from the beginning of when they actually put on, like people started putting on their headsets. I know most of them.
You just felt more comfortable.
I felt comfortable. I felt like I could talk to people directly. It was just, and also they want you to succeed. There's something, so I've told you a little bit earlier about this summer camp that I go to every year. It's a summer camp for adults. And they have a talent show at the end of the summer camp. And the whole goal is if you've never performed in front of people, get on that stage because we are going to root you on like crazy.
Oh, so just like
So no
bunch of
matter
encouragement.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was definitely a fluffy moment.
Oh, such a fluffy moment.
Yeah.
And people get on stage and some people killed it. Like they were the best performers
That's
anywhere. They just
awesome.
popped out of the woodwork. And then other people would just like sing row, row, row your boat. And like they sounded terrible. And people are on
And it
their
was
feet
like, "Yeah."
cheering.
People
They're
are just like,
you
rowed that
Yes. And that's honestly how I feel in alt space all the time because they're just like this like happy band community of people that just like want to root you on. And so
Yeah.
no matter what I do, they're like, "You rock, Keegan." My name in alt space. They're like, "You're amazing. We love you so much." I'm just like, how do you not love this?
Yeah. That's really nice. I was curious a little bit about like your competition, I guess, or the industry in general, like the specific industry
yeah.
to alt space. It's like I've heard of VR chat.
Rec Room.
High fidelity,
Okay.
High
Oh
Fidelity.
yeah,
Is that
that's
another
right.
one?
Mozilla hubs,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's
Facebook
a
spaces,
newer-
rooms.
Okay.
So what are there like standards that are being created? Are you guys communicating with one another? Or at this point is it just kind of like every man or woman for themselves?
Oh no, we're good friends.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like the industry is so small that
Yeah.
I know somebody at every one of those places.
Yeah.
Like close friends at every one of those places. We've worked together. It's like we've been through battle together. I think if anything, we just want the industry to succeed.
It's like you just want the metaverse to happen.
I was going to say, yeah. Like, because you're still, it still kind of feels like it's just trying to reach that mass adoption
Yeah,
and still feels a little bit uncertain about the future.
I think it's that. I think it's also that maybe it's another fluffy moment, but I feel like we want to support each other and we know what's best for VR right now is just awesome content. And so if they can figure it out and that just gives us the better chance of reaching more people.
Yeah.
So I feel really good about the social VR community of people, and there's some amazing people in that space. But all of us are a little bit different. Like VR chat, I feel like is really about like you can create anything. You can create your own avatars. You can go in there, and it can feel chaotic but also amazing. And people have made like lifelong friends. But it's definitely, and it's mostly on PC right now. We're very mobile centric, so if you have a mobile headset, you can use AltSpace.
Yeah.
We're much more about like a very welcoming, a little bit more of an experience that you go into, you kind of know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And then like there's also Sansar, which is the VR version, or the people that created Second Life. It's their kind of VR world.
Yeah.
And we know people over there too, and they're doing some amazing work. But yeah, it doesn't feel like we're out for blood right now. It feels like, hey, how do we make this world a little bit better?
Do you think that was lucky, or do you think that's like because it's the beginning of the industry, or?
I think it's because VR still feels like a very tight community, which is good and bad, because then it means that a lot of people aren't getting into that space. And so my hope is that it becomes maybe a little bit less familiar as more people start getting into it.
Yeah.
But right now we mostly know each other.
That's a really good segue into how you got into this space, actually. Because there really, at least years ago, there definitely weren't like programs at a university where you could study VR. Like that just wasn't a thing.
No, I had a very roundabout way to get into VR. I actually started in advertising. I was a producer for a number of years, and I was a copywriter, so the person that's like writing the ads.
Yeah.
I did radio and I did TV for a while, and then I did almond mounds and York peppermint patty. Yeah,
Okay.
there's some TV spots that are still out there on the interwebs that I helped make, which is really funny.
That's
I saw
awesome.
one poor woman. I made an ad where we had one woman just eating a peppermint patty over and over and over again, and we recorded her different reactions. She went through like 130 York peppermint patties. There was like just a spit bucket for her to spit out the. It was
my
it
That
was
was
a
the
lot.
opposite of a fluffy moment.
No, I was gonna say.
But it was so much
I just
fun.
felt sick.
It was so much
much
fun.
better.
I was like
I love-
this little copywriter from New York, just being like, "Oh, I'm making an ad. Have fun."
How did you even get into that? Because
Yeah.
like we did stalk you. We did stalk you a little bit, and didn't you study like history and Japanese?
yeah, we saw that.
You did stalk me
Of
well.
course we did. Well, this
Yeah.
was fun for me because like we know each other, and I'm like, wow, I don't know Katie nearly as much as I thought I did. Like we're always talking in these group settings. I didn't get to grill you like this.
I love it.
I remember like a core part of this is that we really want certain certain people listening that are in a position where like they haven't gotten into this industry,
or they don't believe like they can. Or
Yeah,
something.
Anybody can get into this industry.
It's like it's so easy to feel like, oh, there's no way that I'm ever going to be able to get into that, or like it's just I don't have the right experience. Like people don't believe that they can make that pivot later in life, whatever it is.
Well, the nicest thing about new technology is that the rules haven't been set yet.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to do this right. So it needs a lot of diverse people to like come in and start making those rules. So for me, I did advertising for a number of years. I started with history and Japanese mostly because I wanted to be a filmmaker and my school didn't have filmmaking. So I'm like, I like reading. So sure, let's do history. And I wanted to live in Japan for a little while. And then I just got an internship at an ad agency from like just a friend. And it turned out I loved it. And so I stuck with it. And then I moved to San Francisco, followed a girl out there, and started working at a startup. And then I got really into startup life. I worked for probably 3 or 4 different startups.
It's definitely its own lifestyle.
Oh, my goodness. Absolutely. And I was a copywriter. I did marketing. And then I worked for a nonprofit for 2 years as the director of communications. And when I was working at the nonprofit, I went to the Future of Storytelling conference in New York, which if you haven't heard of it, it's amazing. It's a great little, it's a gathering of people that are trying to come up with the future of storytelling in general. Al Gore was there. Even Edward Snowden was like piped in on a Skype call.
Edward Snowden on the future of storytelling.
I know. David Blaine like did some magic tricks.
He was floating in the sky.
Yeah. It was so good. But they had a VR tent, and I never tried VR.
You just said he was floating in the sky. This is not in VR, Jay. This is in real.
But it's David Blaine. That's literally what he does.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Like, have you ever seen him in his magician things where he's out on the sidewalk?
Levitates.
Yeah,
and we never see it.
Float. You never actually see him levitate, but the way people react, they're just like, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
like he actually did float off the sidewalk. So like,
he might have.
You never really know.
Anyways, tangents. Yeah. So I went into this VR tent and I put on the first headset I came across, and I was transported to the experience where I was a linebacker running down a field.
Ooh.
The football was under me. My hair was just like blowing in the wind. Yeah, it was.
Dramatic.
And I got there and I did the touchdown, and my big muscly arms reached into the air, and I took off the headset and I was like, holy shit.
Whoa.
What? This was so good. I was like, what? And I was like, this is amazing.
Suddenly
and then I tried
like someone different.
Yeah, I kind of wish my first VR experience was maybe like something else, but you know, everybody's got there first. Yeah, everybody's got there first.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one other woman in the VR tent, and she was giving some demos, and I asked her, how many women are in this space? Like who's like doing this? And she goes, not enough. And I remember thinking, this is so like, I felt so awesome. Transported.
Yeah.
And so I was worried about another technology being created by a homogenous group. And so there was partly I was just fascinated by it. And it was the first time I felt like so much childlike wonder. And I was like, okay, I need to get into this space. And so I just started looking around, and AltSpace hadn't again launched on any VR headsets. But from a friend of a friend of a friend, I got connected to this guy, and he's like, yeah, just come out, check out AltSpace, and it changed my life.
Yeah.
And I worked at AltSpace and originally as a product marketing manager. But what quickly
more towards your background.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what was interesting was marketing in VR, especially in social VR, means you are talking directly to people.
Yeah.
And so my job quickly became not just like sharing a story, but directly interacting and then sharing that story with the rest of the team, and then also making recommendations for how to actually make those people's lives better. And then events became marketing directly to people. So all of a sudden my role started becoming everything that AltSpace was, like from the community up. And so I started managing the community. I started
interesting, because it's like all the users, like if you're starting that relationship with potential users, then you're like continuing it in some ways to get feedback with them, and then you're eventually just naturally kind of managing that community. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Exactly. It was just so interesting because now I run the team. Like I basically run AltSpace, but I started from such a very different position. And so, and then we were acquired by Microsoft, and we moved up to Redmond, our team. And initially I was like the head of engagement. So my job was still community building. But my job was still advocating for the community, recommending features to actually make their lives better. And then that role slowly just started becoming like, wait, if you're the one like fostering the community and fostering like our roadmap and our ideas, like they just kept giving me more and more responsibility.
Like
so they're just like, fine, just run it already.
Everything
like
go for it. Just go for it.
Figure out what works.
Exactly.
It totally makes sense because VR is something that you can't just show a person, like someone else doing it and say like, look at this awesome thing. You have to like engage them in it.
Right.
In order
Exactly.
for them to understand.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
What has been like one of your biggest challenges changing your position from community manager to moving up to running alt space?
Oh my God, so many things.
Besides like everything.
Actually, it hasn't. My best friend one of my best friends, I was visiting her in San Francisco a couple weeks ago, and when I got word that I was going to be running the team, she got me a book called Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
Yeah,
she's
I haven't
amazing.
read it, but I have heard
So
of it.
good.
I believe it's on my Kindle somewhere.
But the
It's on a
sweet-
wish list.
Yeah.
But the sweet thing is in the cover, so she, on the first page, she had written a quote from Harry Potter. And it was the quote where Hagrid is telling Harry, it's like, the people that are born to greatness, like, don't always want it. It's not like the people that want power aren't always the best ones that want to lead.
Yeah.
It's the people that accidentally fall into that role that find out that they're good leaders. And she written that for me, and I remember being like so touched by that. But I think that I never really thought of myself as needing to be a leader. Not that I couldn't be a leader, but I think what has been really interesting, I hope other people feel, especially women that are aspiring to do it, or just anybody for that matter, but that you don't know who you're going to be until you're in those positions, and there's probably some superpowers that you don't know you have that are going to come out when you do that. And for me, I'm really obsessed with just seeing people happy and excited to like come in and do their thing. And so this has given me the chance to actually to impact that. So instead of feeling that much pressure about it, it feels a little bit more like play. So even I have all hands like once a month where you just invite your whole team to come together and you talk about, what are we doing next?
Yeah.
I start everyone with a game. It's like 5 minutes. And summer camp has definitely helped inform that.
Yeah, I was going to say, inspired.
My favorite is Rock, Paper, Scissors Superstar.
Oh.
Have you played this game?
No.
But I love rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, you'd be so
Huge
good
fan.
at this. So good at this. So you just have everybody play rock, paper, scissors with one person, and it's West Coast rules. It's rock, paper, scissors, and on scissors you put your scissors down, not shoot. Just like
I hate
wait,
the
is that-
West Coast.
Yeah, I was going to
Sorry.
say, I'm used
West
to
Coast
like rock,
rules.
paper, scissors, shoot.
Nope, rock, paper, scissors. It's all right. It's all right. We'll figure out those rules later.
I
Like glaring across the room.
so upset. Sorry, caught in the act.
He was burning you
Yeah.
with those eyes.
I've seen those eyes before. I've seen them. Yeah, and then so you play off against each other, and then whoever wins, instead of whoever loses, they don't complain, they don't whine like, "Oh, I lost." They become the winner's biggest fan. And so what happens is then the winner goes and finds the next person,
Yeah.
and then whoever wins that one, they get all the other people that had lost. They
Yeah.
become their biggest like groupies and their fans.
Okay.
So by the end of it, within like a couple minutes, you have two sides that are just like screaming the person's name, and they are so into it. And then you have a final battle, and then whoever wins, it's the best rock paper scissors
God.
superstar.
Nice.
So fun. And the reason we do it is that we can't possibly create a community of people that are having fun together unless we know how to have fun with each other.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in general, we make work so much work. Why? It's like it's such a large part of our day and our time. And also
Yeah.
the thing we're making is where people go to have fun. So we need to find a way to bring the play into it and also just support each other. Because just as the users yelling me on or encouraging me during my alt space stuff, if we're not encouraging each other and like hoping for the best for each other and our team, how are we going to possibly like make something that users feel like they're compelled to like feel good and support each other?
Yeah. That's so crazy because it seems like you were a natural at this particular thing, which was getting people excited and engaged in these games and experiences. So, like, at least from the outside, it seems like
You'd have to ask
you're a
my team
natural
members.
fit.
Hopefully they like it too. They're like, oh, not another game. I hate
You're like,
fun.
I love these games. They're so much fun. You talk to your team. They're like, oh,
There's one person.
No, but that's actually an
kidding.
important part that I think I've been trying to work on this like past couple weeks is also recognizing where people are at. You have introverts, you have extroverts.
Yeah.
So it's like no matter what gives me joy may not give somebody else
that's
joy.
true.
So even in the fun extrovert games, I still give an option. If this doesn't feel like your thing, just watching is just as fun. Just go have a good time and watch the play.
What is your biggest hope for the future of social VR?
I really hope now that we're at the beginning of creating a whole other technology that we do it the right way. I think we
Yeah.
are still facing the repercussions of the technology we've made in the past that wasn't thought out. And
Like it just happened so
it
fast.
just happened.
Yeah.
Like the fact that the internet is kind of based around advertising
Yeah.
and clicks and like just eyeballs. What if social VR is kind of the fabric of the new internet?
Yeah.
And whether it's Altspace or not, or hopefully some combination of all these other apps, what if the new way of like surfing the web is actually going to a space, interacting with people? Instead of sharing a website, you share your home space that is actually a physical space that people can go into.
Yeah.
And so now if it becomes the future of the internet, how do we make it in a way so that people can support each other in a positive way? And also, how do we that's why we're so obsessed with like a welcoming community. I hope that the future of the internet or the future of the metaverse isn't necessarily Ready Player One. There's a lot of people that want to live in that world, and I hope that portion of the world exists.
I was going to say, I feel like they could coexist in a way that you decide what you want to experience and do, and that's fine.
Well, that's why the internet was so amazing. People could go into it and go, I'm going to create a whole new startup, a whole new company because the internet gives me the ability to. Now, imagine if you take that one step further and it becomes a physical space.
Yeah.
And so you have people now that don't need to move to Silicon Valley or Seattle or New York to make a difference. They can create an entire new way of anything. Like we can't even imagine it. Like you could be again at somewhere in South Africa and be able to make this space, and all of a sudden you can connect the entire world to it.
Yeah.
Like that's what I hope, that we do it in the right way, and we figure out. Again, I really care about democratizing experiences and giving everybody the best chance to experience this world with us. And I feel like VR has a really good potential to do that.
Katie, thank you
That was awesome.
so much. Thanks for listening to Reality Quest Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Bow,
Woo!
bow, bow.
This is such a big deal. It's our first episode.
Yeah, our
It's a
first episode
huge
ever.
milestone.
We are pretty excited. A huge thank you to Katie Kelly for being our guinea pig. Katie, we love you. And everyone else will love you after this too, I'm
You
sure.
made it. You made it through the whole thing.
Yeah.
You took the journey with us.
Yeah. So for those of you who want to follow Katie, and you definitely should, our wonderful guest, you can find her on Twitter at OKKTK. That is OKKATIEKAY. And then also that social VR app we talked about a lot, Altspace VR. Well, you should definitely go check that out. You do not need a headset. I repeat, you do not need a headset.
Where do you find that?
So you go to altvr.com. Thank you, Jay. So that's altvr.com. And so if you have a headset, it works on Samsung Gear VR, Oculus Rift, Quest, and of course, Windows Mixed Reality. Now, if you do not have a headset, you can go into this 2D mode thing on your computer. So just go to the website. They'll tell you everything there. And I think it also works on some Samsung phones, though I don't feel super positive about that. So you should check them out. And the thing is, you're in the same world as everyone else. So it's cross-platform. You're talking to people who are in headsets.
Jump into that same space. And,
right. Yeah.
share
Or
the
maybe not in
experience.
headsets. Even if you have a headset, sometimes you don't have it handy. And so you need to go in through your PC or something. So anyways, check Katie out. Check Altspace out. Jay, what else?
So if you enjoyed this episode and you want to hear more, we will be releasing a new episode bi-weekly on Monday mornings.
Oh yeah. Start your week fresh with Reality
during
Quest.
your morning commute or whatever time you enjoy listening
yeah.
to podcasts. You can find us as Reality Quest on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, basically anywhere that you like to dive into the wondrous, mystical world of podcasts. We will also be setting up a Patreon account, so you will be able to find that link as well if you enjoyed us enough to support us and you want us to keep making more episodes and talking to more interesting people and driving this whole ship forward.
Yeah.
So we also have a website, realityquestpodcast.com, where you can learn more about the whole endeavor.
Yeah. And also, I think, Jade, they can email us through that. Is that right?
Yes, you will be able to email us
Yeah,
as well.
so definitely email us, communicate with us in whatever way you can contact us, whether that's through the website or you know us personally. But we want to hear your feedback. We want to hear what you liked, what you didn't like, and who you might want to have on. Or if you're somebody who's interested in coming on the show, you have something interesting to share and talk about.
Yeah, definitely reach out to your community, your friends, people that aren't even in XR that might have something interesting that they can contribute to the space, because we're trying to bring new people, new blood into this industry and really,
for sure,
jumpstart some creativity.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned. 2 weeks, and we'll come out with another one, and it's going to be awesome.
See you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.